Hello again, welcome to another edition here on Focus Gold TV where we inspire minds and shape the future. In today's episode, we are privileged again to have Dr. Abdul Muiz Tikuma Mukhtar, PhD, to help us on today's topic where we'll be discussing meat and food hygiene and safety. Doc, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you. And like always, like, comment, and share our content so a lot of people can benefit from this. And also your opinions and contributions are welcomed. My name is Muniru Baria. And meat and food hygiene and safety. I don't know you out there if you're also a foodie, because I love food and I love meat. And if you have ever stolen meat from the soup pots, then come, let's go together. Doc, well, let me ask you if you have ever picked meat from the soup pots. I mean, you caught or not?
Well, maybe I did.
You can't remember.
But I also caught.
That's quite interesting. For me, I have had beatings from my mom for stealing meat, but that's just by the way. One may be wondering what meat and food hygiene and safety is if you can take us through that.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's good to be here again today. So meat and food hygiene involves practices that you do in order to keep meat and food safe for human consumption. It could be from the production stage, processing stage, storage and handling, up to the sale of meat and food. So all the processes you do or practices you do in all these stages to ensure that the final product you sell to people is safe and wholesome for human consumption. That is what we mean by meat and food hygiene.
Why is it very important to consider hygiene or the safety of the food or meat we consume?
Yes, it's very important because we know that some people say we eat to live. And so it's part of the things that we need to survive as human beings, because we have what we call the characteristics of life. And so there are certain life processes that we must undergo in order to be living or in order to be alive. And one of it is nutrition, feeding. So because we need to eat food in order to be healthy and also to be alive, we need to eat food that is wholesome and safe, so that you continue to be nourished and to be alive and healthy and to go about with your normal activities.
Let's move away from food in general and focus on meat. At what point is meat likely to be contaminated?
So meat processing starts from the slaughter through to the point of sale. So before you slaughter, if you don't handle the process very well, it can result in contaminated meat. Because after you slaughter, how you handle the meat, how you transport the meat, how you handle the meat, transport, and even the sale, the point of sale, all those stages, there could be contamination at each of these stages.
And are there some common causes of these contaminations?
Yes, so initially we know that meat has a lot of moisture and nutrients. And so if microorganisms, especially bacteria, get into meat, it becomes an ideal environment for the bacteria to thrive and to also get nourishment and shelter. So when they find themselves in meat like that, they grow very rapidly and then they are able to result in contamination of the meat, which can lead to diseases and other things.
Wow. I'm sure there are hygiene standards that should be observed, especially at the slaughterhouse. What are some of these standards that butchers must always observe?
So the first thing is the environment of the slaughterhouse. It should be very clean and sightly so that it will be devoid of potential microbes that could contaminate the meat. Then the personal hygiene of the meat handlers, the butchers, is also very important, so that they will not transfer organisms from themselves to the meat. So they should ensure good personal hygiene of themselves. The abattoir environment should also be very clean and devoid of contaminants. Then butchers should also use water, because they use a lot of water in the processes. Use water that is clean and not contaminated in the processing of the meat. Then they should also practice good hand hygiene. They should wash their hands at all times to ensure that they don't contaminate the meat. And then when the meat is processed, the next thing is transporting the meat to the point of sale. At this point too, they should make sure the meat is transported in clean vans, or whichever media they are sending. It should be very clean and covered, so that flies and other organisms don't get access to the meat and to contaminate the meat.
Wow. Looking at all that you have mentioned, you will hardly see some of these things in our slaughterhouses. Yes, from the slaughter to the transportation. Even there are some slaughterhouses where they lack enough water, because there is a lot of cleaning that should be done after the slaughtering before the meat has been sent to be consumed. Now let's look at inspection. I'm sure there should be inspections done before the meat is sold to the consumer. What kind of inspections should be done, and who is responsible for doing this inspection?
So at the slaughterhouse, there are two main forms of inspection that goes on. We have the ante-mortem inspection and the post-mortem inspection. So when the animal is brought, they are supposed to be examined to see if they are diseased, they are not in normal shape, before a decision is taken to move the animal in for slaughtering. So an inspection is done there. This is usually done by veterinary professionals, veterinary doctors. They do the ante-mortem inspection. There are some diseases which may not be clearly seen when the animal is alive. That's why we also do post-mortem inspection. So after the animal is slaughtered, an inspection is done again, which is called post-mortem inspection. And this is done usually by environmental health professionals, the meat inspectors. They will exercise the meat, cut certain parts of the meat that they think potential disease-causing organisms would be. So they do all those checks to ensure that even after slaughtering, the meat is still wholesome and can be consumed by the public. So these are the inspections that are done, and it's done to ensure that even the meat that is being sold is meat that is safe and can be consumed by the people. So inspection involves the veterinary professionals and also the environmental health professionals. They together collaborate to handle these inspections.
I'm just smiling at this because if you visit most of our slaughterhouses, well, I don't know, but you hardly find veterinary there to inspect the animals. Because in a day, the number of animals they will slaughter, the mode of transportation, and even at the sales points, when you go there, there are a lot of flies greasing each other on the meats and doing all sort of things there. When it comes to hygiene laws, do we have any of that, and who is responsible for the regulation?
So at the abattoir, that's why we have these two professionals there. There should be no way disease-causing organisms should have access to this meat, because the professionals are there and they know the implications of exposing their meat to these disease-causing organisms. So if they really do their work, the veterinary do their ante-mortem and the environmental health people also do their post-mortem, then we shouldn't have such situations. Yes, I've also visited the abattoir to probably either do personal stuff or to supervise students on practicals and all that. And so I always tell them that, because they are my students, and I always tell them that they should show professionalism at their workplace, because part of their work is to educate the butchers and other stakeholders at the abattoir to ensure that the meat that is leaving the abattoir is safe for public consumption. That's why we have a stamp. After all the inspection, if they think the meat is wholesome and can be consumed by the public, they will stamp on the meat and indicate that they have passed the meat for public consumption. But from there, they should still be interested in where this meat gets to. Because from the abattoir to go to various sale points.
Yeah.
And so they should go ahead, make sure that even the sale points, they are covering the meat and maintaining hygienic environments to ensure that the meat that is finally sold to the consumer is meat that is safe and wholesome.
Then I think a lot of work needs to be done, because I can't actually tell or remember any sales points where you will find meat that is nicely displayed on the table without flies or even insects having access to it. Whenever you go, they just spread the people on the table, the meat is there, they even handle it with their bare hands when they are serving the customer. Now, let's come back to the consumer, because in all of this, the consumer might not have that much power to do all of this inspection. Now that you have purchased the meat, are there ways that a consumer can prepare it so that it will be healthy for them to consume?
Yeah, so the consumer also has a role to play in ensuring that the meat he or she consumes is safe. So the first thing the consumer should do is they should buy meat from sources that are recognized. If you are going to buy meat, ensure that there is a stamp on the meat to show that it has been passed by the professionals.
But if you go and the meat is already cut into pieces,
at least there should be some remnants of the stamp somewhere for you to know. And I'm sure the environmental health unit could also do a lot by probably giving licenses to meat sellers to ensure that for this meat seller, the meat he sells is certified.
So at least when you go, you look out for the license.
They could do that. I've made those proposals to them to consider that, so that you know we can call it licensed meat vendors or meat sellers.
Yes.
Those who actually follow strict hygienic protocols. Then I advise consumers to always buy from such people. Apart from that, if you cannot be sure whether the meat is wholesome or not, but you need to buy the meat, when you get home, preparing the meat properly is also very important. If you're able to learn how to prepare meat to ensure that even if there were organisms in the meat, you are able to kill those organisms, it's very good. For instance, there are some diseases that if you partially cook meat or you don't cook the meat properly, those diseases will actually be prevalent and they can infect you. Those you have a disease, hermetic diseases like teniasis. Then we have Taenia saginata, which is beef tapeworm. And then we have the Taenia solo, which is also pork. Those who eat pork. We have the pork tapeworm, which is very, very dangerous. It's even more dangerous than the beef one. So you're able to prepare the meat properly, and you don't eat the meat raw or partially cooked. The nutritionist will also advise on how to prepare the meat so that you don't also lose the nutritional value of it. So you'll be locked down between killing organisms and also ensuring that you don't overcook the meat for it to lose it. So if you learn the best practices, you will be able to do whatever you need to do to ensure you are eating wholesome meat and not just meat that is contaminated and can be harmful to your health. Yes.
Let's look at some of the risk for infections that people who consume contaminated meat can get.
Yes, so depending on the organisms or the contaminants in the meat, various diseases or infections can arise. You can have symptoms of diarrhea after eating meat that contains some diarrheal organisms. And then you can also have stomach ache from especially meat that is not properly cooked and it has the coliform bacteria in the meat like E. coli, Salmonella typhi, that can even lead to typhoid. So all that are potential diseases you can be exposed to if you eat meat that is contaminated and also that is improperly cooked.
Okay. This is quite funny because during our Eid al-Adha we consume a lot of meat from different sources, those that are cooked, those that we prepare ourselves, and then people end up running. I think we'll have to check some of and that's another concern. During this time, there is no veterinary to come and inspect the meat. There's no officer to come and check the slaughter, the handling, and the distribution of the meat. So, can something be done about that?
Yes. So,
can there be a regulation for that?
Yes. So the professionals are there, and they are there to help us. So what I usually will advise is that we are going to slaughter your animal. You should seek the services of the environmental health officers to inspect. And when you have slaughtered, they inspect the meat and certify that the meat is wholesome before you can start distributing or utilizing the meat. I remember some year back, I was going to slaughter my animal during and I invited one of my students who is very good in meat inspection. And I asked him to inspect my meat. He was surprised that I had done it because nobody does that. And when he inspected the meat after slaughter, he discovered that the animal was actually infected with TB before we slaughtered the animal. So we had to cut out all the parts that were infected by the disease, and all localized parts that were infected, we took them out before we dealt with the meat. Oh. So if everybody is very conscious and does this, it helps.
Then I guess we eat a lot of trouble during this time, but we are hoping that people will get education. There's a lot of sensitization should be done so that people will have the knowledge for some of these things.
So for public consumption, there's a strict law that says that you cannot sell meat to the public without doing it at the abattoir. Mm-hmm. But the private ones are the issue. So what we do is just to encourage them to also do that. If you have an animal and want to slaughter, the best is to take it to the abattoir, let them inspect the animal, slaughter, process the meat, pass it for you. And you can take your thing back home and deal with it. Then you'll be sure that you are eating safe meat. Okay. It will not take anything away from you. It will only help you. Yes.
I think the environmental health officers will have to push for some of these things to be done.
Yes.
I know when we consume contaminated meat, you definitely have an infection. Are there a particular group of people who are of higher risk of getting infected when they consume contaminated meat?
Yes, we have the vulnerable populations like children, the elderly, and also women.
Okay.
They usually sometimes have systems that are compromised at certain times of their lives. And also people with underlying health conditions. They also are immunocompromised, and so their systems may not be that strong to fight infection, so they are vulnerable. So those are the vulnerable groups that are likely to be affected more by this food contamination or meat contamination.
What are some of the steps or guidance that meat sellers can take to avoid contaminating their meat and then selling to consumers?
So the first thing is the premises where they are selling the meat. They should make sure it's very clean and devoid of contaminant bacteria and other pests. The environment should be very clean and devoid of those things. Then the butcher, the meat seller himself or herself should ensure personal hygiene and also wash their hands properly while dealing or handling the meat. Then the water they will use in washing should also be clean water. The next thing is to make sure the meat is covered at all times to prevent flies and other organisms from stepping on the meat. It's very important.
Is there a particular institution that should be responsible or are responsible for ensuring the safety of food that we consume?
Yes, there are institutions responsible for ensuring food and meat safety. The first one is the Food and Drugs Authority. Their mandate includes ensuring that whatever food or meat that is being sold to the public is meat that is clean, that is wholesome, and that is hygienic. So they usually go around and do checks to ensure that these standards are met. The next institution is the Environmental Health Unit. They are with the assemblies. So their mandate is also, that's why they are stationed some of them are stationed at the abattoir to make sure the place of processing is clean and they are doing the right thing. Then their mandate is also to go around at various slaughter slabs or meat sale points to ensure the meat handlers and sellers are following the standards to make sure they are selling food. That's why they even do food and meat vendor screenings to ensure that even the one selling the food or the meat to the public is himself clean and healthy before handling and then selling meat to people. So for public consumption, they are not supposed to compromise in this check. So they do premises inspections at food vendor sites and meat vendor sites, even chop bars. They go around hotels, they do all the facility inspections to make sure the environments there are actually meeting standards and the services they are giving to the general public is services that are safe and hygienic and will support public health.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask this. When you go to buy meat, is there a particular color of the meat that you should consider? And what other colors that maybe a green light or a red light that this could probably be not hygienic for you?
So depending on the kind of meat you are looking at, we have meat that is called red meat and a part of the meat that is not red. So if you observe that this is supposed to be red meat and you go and the color is changed or the color changes to something else and you know there's something wrong with that meat. If the meat is supposed to be white and you go and it's green, it means there's something wrong with the meat. And this can all arise as a result of infections or contamination to the meat. Because when microorganisms grow at a point, they change color of that part. So look for ordinarily the normal color of the meat when buying. We also observe fungal growths on the meat. It's a red flag. It's a red flag. Yes. We also observe flies on the meat,
But there was some time that people said there are chemicals that they put on meat to chase away the flies. So if you go and there are no flies on the meat, don't buy. Now you say if there are too much flies on the meat, don't buy. So which one should we go for?
So even using chemicals on meat is illegal. It's not supposed to be done. So under normal circumstances, the meat should be fresh. And the flies will be around, but don't let them have access to the meat. That's just the issue. For the scent of the meat and other properties of the meat, it will attract flies.
Yes.
So the flies will come around, but cover the meat to ensure the flies
Don't have direct access to it.
But if native flies step on meat, they release their eggs. Their eggs will hatch into larvae. That's what we call maggots. And if they actually harbor any microbes, those microbes, the meat is an ideal place for microorganisms to grow. So because there's moisture in it and there are nutrients in it, so it will encourage them to grow.
This is quite interesting though, but I'm sure we should have time to, because there is a growing rate of typhoid in the system. Maybe if you could, we'll have some time to discuss on some of the things or practices that we do that is causing all of this. But finally, what advice would you give to the general public on meat safety and hygiene?
Yeah, so the best advice I can give to is, as individuals, watch what you eat. Somebody was asked to watch what he takes. And anytime he wants to eat, he will sit in front of a mirror. That's not what I'm saying. Don't sit in front of a mirror before you eat. You have to be very vigilant. If the best is to go and buy the animal yourself, take it to the abattoir and let them process it, for you know what you are taking home. But not all of us can do that.
Yes.
So when you go to buy meat, actually be very vigilant as to which meat you are buying. Make sure even the person selling the meat is actually hygienic, has handled the meat hygienically before selling the meat to you, and also observe the meat very well to make sure that the meat is not meat that may not be wholesome for you. In any case, if you get the meat to the house, your preparation of the meat is also very important. Wash the meat thoroughly with clean water to make sure that the meat is clean. And when you are cooking, cook well to make sure that even if there are organisms in the meat, they would have been killed by the cooking or the preparation process before you can consume the meat. So it's very important.
Well, I was trying to dodge this, but in a way we'll just touch a bit on it. Frozen meat, most of them are packaged. So how people have always raised concerns about how they are being handled before it gets to the final consumer. Is there a concern that or an observation that we need to always take note of when we are purchasing those ones?
If our systems were working well, we should not be concerned about frozen, especially imported meat products. That's why we have authorities in place to ensure that what is coming in is actually wholesome and hygienic. The Ghana Standards Authority usually check that. The Food and Drugs Authority, they have labs, and they even take samples of this to their labs to check to make sure that they are not bringing in contaminated and unwholesome meat to this country. So if they are doing their work well, or if they are doing their work well, we should not be concerned about that. What we should just be concerned about is when you get the meat to your house, you also do your parts, handle it properly and cook properly, and then you will not have this problem. Yes.
But I think I'm so much interested the regulation and the inspection should be done, because most of our abattoirs and their meat vendors, this is not to attack anybody's business, but that's what we see.
Yeah.
They don't cover them. At least even if the meat can be placed in sieves that are transparent, people will definitely see and know that. I know at the abattoir there is meat being sold there, but the way it is being handled, I think a lot needs to be done, from the slaughtering to the transportation and to the sales.
A lot needs to be done. And in other places, there are even private abattoirs. For example, you go to Accra, there's Jefanko private abattoir. And if you go sell your animal there, or if you go there and you buy meat, that's where you see standards. They handle the meats with professionalism. When they are done, they package it very well, and you are sure of what you are taking home, and you'll be safe. So if we all follow those standards, and if our professionals do their work well, then we should all be fine.
Well, some time ago, I can't remember which media house did this documentary on a slaughterhouse, and what they used to take the skin of the animal is some kind of a gas spray that they light to do that. All of these things are not healthy, and even the water that they used to wash the meat. Oh God, if you consider this, whatever it is,
so I always tell somebody that avoid the abattoir, because if you go there and you see what they do, you will never want to buy meats from there.
Wow.
As you said, the singeing of the animals, our local people would usually burn the skin, firewood, and that is, or even car ties. Use car ties. That is very dangerous.
Wow.
We've educated them so much. We've done a lot of research on it to actually prove that using car ties to singe animals is wrong. But as to whether the professionals and the regulators are enforcing the rules is another thing. Usually, use of the gas flames is safer compared to the use of the used car ties. It's very wrong, very, very wrong.
That's quite interesting. I think our laws need to be enforced and then punish those who are culpable of this. Because what we contribute is really very important. Thank you very much, Doc, for that education. I'm sure we have learned a lot from this discussion. And that was Dr. Abdul Moisti Kumar Mokhtar, PhD. He is an environmental health specialist and a lecturer at School of Public Health at the University for Development Studies. My name has been Moniru Baria. Thank you very much to the production team. And once again, like, comment, and share our content. We'll be back with some more episodes with interesting discussion. discussions. Enjoy.